Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
BBC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, we're following several developing stories as we come on the air. The severe weather stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf. President Trump calling on allies to help reopen a key waterway for oil shipments. And we're on the red carpet for the 98th Academy Awards. We begin with that wild winter storm. Impacted over the next few days. Minutes in Hawaii. Plus trouble in the skies. More than 2,000 flights canceled ahead of the storm. Travelers told to arrive 3 hours early for flights after hundreds of TSA quit because they're not made during the government shutdown. Day 16 of the war with Iran. The president asking allies to help secure the Strait of Hormuz to get oil flowing again, but no promises yet. And growing concern about Russia and China. Both have been speaking with Iran. James Longman reports from the region. Economic shockwaves from gasoline to groceries. The price of gas up 75 cents and food prices set to spike. What the energy secretary told our Martha Raddatz about when oil prices will come down. Moving tributes to the 6 airmen killed when their refueling plane crashed in Iraq. One had just been promoted and leaves behind a young family. Another remembered as being exceptional. The violent outburst at an airport when authorities say a TSA agent was attacked. The suspect could face decades in prison. Heart-stopping video. A taxi cab slams into 2 women outside a deli. Remarkably, neither was seriously hurt. Selection Sunday, the day basketball fans have been waiting for, as tickets are punched for the NCAA tournament. And countdown to the Oscars. Lindsay Davis and Whit Johnson on the fierce competition for Best Picture. Will it be Sinners or one battle after another? Or could there be an upset?
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
On this Sunday night, no talks, no trust, and no off-ramps. Conflicting rhetoric from the U.S. and Iran as the war enters week 3.
We don't see any reason why you should talk with Americans.
With a rising death toll among U.S. troops.
He's playing with our only child,
And mounting destruction. The war's impact on your mortgage.
It's like a roller coaster.
Why rates will likely follow the price at the pumps. The New World Order. Prime Minister Carney's middle power push at the Canada-Nordic Summit with a warning about Arctic security. And on this International Long COVID Awareness Day, how the nightmare for some continues.
There are people disabled enough that they aren't able to work.
Global National reporting tonight. Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It has been called a waterway weapon of war. A day after U.S. President Donald Trump called on a number of nations to help make the Strait of Hormuz safe again, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer spoke to him about the need to reopen the vital shipping route. And there are reports tonight the Trump administration is set to announce a coalition has been formed to escort ships through the strait. Starmer says he also spoke with Prime Minister Mark Carney today about the impact of the continued closure, something they'll discuss further at a meeting tomorrow after Carney arrived in London today. As the war enters its 3rd week, civilians continue to pay the price, shattering the lives of those in the Persian Gulf region and increasingly family members of fallen American troops. Candace Cole has more on a now seemingly endless conflict and the confusing messaging coming from the White House.
We never asked for a ceasefire.
Iran's foreign
minister appearing on Face the Nation Sunday, refuting claims U.S. President Donald Trump made suggesting the Islamic Republic is ready to make a deal to end the 16-day war. Saturday, Trump told reporters he's not ready to make a deal because he wants better terms, but the Iranians say no such deal was ever on the table.
And we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes. There are, people being killed only because President Trump wants to have fun.
Just this weekend, the war reached a new point of escalation with America's bombardment of military assets on Iran's Karg Island, a major oil hub, in response to the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, responsible for transporting a fifth of the world's oil. But as oil prices spike due to the conflict, the people living in Iran and neighboring Gulf countries are paying the steepest price.
The assets we have in space, the satellites that are there for observation, for communication, these are the capabilities that are identifying the rocket launches, that are communicating to our forces and give America an extreme edge in this conflict.
And that's the head of NASA, Administrator.
Africa News. The news.
Fresh Iranian strikes were reported across the Gulf region on Sunday, day after the U.S. struck Karg Island, vital to Iran's oil exports and threatened Iranian oil facilities. Iran's military in turn threatened to attack U.S.-linked oil assets in the region if its oil infrastructure was hit. Iran accused the U.S. of using ports in the United Arab Emirates to launch the strikes, threatening for the first time a neighboring country's non-U.S. assets. The UAE, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia all reported drones and missiles had been launched at their countries on Sunday. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he hoped allies would send warships to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Britain, in response, said it was discussing with allies a range of options to secure shipping. At the same time, air raids sounded over Israel and Iran overnight as the two countries continued to trade strikes, while direct clashes between Israel and Hezbollah were reported in Lebanon.
As oil prices remain high amid the ongoing war in the Middle East, its impact is increasingly filtering down into the lives of people across Africa. The top regional energy regulator says that if fuel shortages and the current price persists, it could knock 3 percentage points off economic growth across the continent. In Nigeria, despite the fact that it produces oil, petrol prices have surged in recent days. This would have cost me 200 naira. Now it's 600 naira. I do not understand the point of the war. We're not involved in the war, yet we are the ones who are suffering from its effects. Look at the distance. It's the people in Iran and the United States who are fighting a war, yet we are suffering the consequences. I don't understand why this is happening. The rising oil price has a knock-on effect, triggering widespread economic consequences, including higher inflation. It impacts everything from freight and produce transport costs, the operation of factories and businesses, right down to the cost of food, increasing pressure on.
You listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today, state governments tackle the Australian fuel supply issue, warning against panic buying.
We can manage our fuel supplies on current levels if we act in a common sense way.
The federal government confirms it will not send a Navy ship to the Strait of Hormuz, despite calls for assistance from Donald Trump. The bodies of 3 missing fishermen recovered off the South Australian coast. And the 98th Academy Awards is underway in Los Angeles, but no luck so far for the 5 nominated Australians. Hello and welcome
Welcome to ABC News. I'm Catherine Robinson. Pressure is mounting on governments across the country to do more to boost fuel supply and keep prices from rising too high as the Middle East war enters its third week. A raft of measures are on the table, including assistance for trucking companies. The New South Wales government is convening a round table with representatives from the farming, mining and transport industries. The Premier, Chris Minns, says while there is currently enough supply, panic buying is putting a strain on the system. Reporter Nick
David Muir.
Thanks for staying with us here on Night Watch on France 24. Our main headlines for you this hour. Israel expands its air raids across western Iran, targeting military bases and missile sites as the Middle East conflict continues. The Israel Defense Forces has said there are thousands more sites to target across the country. Iran continues its retaliatory strikes against Israel and across the Gulf. Voting wraps up here in France for the first round of municipal elections, with turnout at near record lows. Early results from Paris show the socialist candidate Emmanuel Gregoire leading with more than 37% ahead of the conservative Rachida Dati. Strong gains claimed by the far right in the south and the far left in the north. And finally, one battle after another takes 6 Oscars at the 98th Academy Awards in Hollywood. Paul Thomas Anderson's political drama picking up the coveted Best Director and Best Picture. The big favourite, Sinners, took just 4, including Best Screenplay for Ryan Coogler and Best Actor Michael B. Jordan. We'll be live to LA for the latest with our correspondent, Wasim Kofi. Thanks very much for staying with us this morning as the Middle East conflict enters its 17th day. On Sunday, Israel expanded its air raids across western Iran, targeting military bases and missiles.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Grace Shin, and at this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump signals he could delay his summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping later this month as he presses Beijing to help unblock the Strait of Hormuz. And the U.S. leader appealing to China and other allies to send warships, says Indian Foreign Minister S.G. Shankar calls for dialogue to open up the choked waterway. 20 rescue Thai crew members returned home safely after their bulk carrier was attacked in the Strait of Hormuz last week. Our top story this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump says he could delay a planned summit with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping as he demands China, among other countries, to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz. He says those heavily reliant on the waterway should take a more active role in ensuring safe passage for tankers and other vessels.
China, as an example, gets about 90% of its oil from the Hormuz Strait. And nice to have other countries police it with us.
Mr. Trump, in an interview with the Financial Times, said he would prefer to know China's stance on unblocking the strait before his trip. His comments come as negotiators from the world's 2 largest economies hold trade discussions in Paris. CNA's Deborah Wong tells us how this added pressure from President Trump could reshape the agenda or tone of the next round of talks.
Beijing is unlikely to be shaken. It's quite likely to stand its ground on its foreign policy of non-interference. In fact, we did hear from top diplomat Wang Yi just last week when he addressed it.
Our top has warned this is a very bad future if allies of the financial that it's only appropriate that those who benefit from the waterway will help to make sure nothing bad happens there. About a fifth of global oil and liquefied natural gas passes through the Strait of Hormuz. The Israeli military has launched fresh strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut's southern suburbs. The attacks came after the Israeli army issued evacuation orders for neighborhoods in Beirut, as well as southern Lebanon. Earlier, an airstrike killed 12 medics at a healthcare center in southern Lebanon, according to the health minister. The captain of the Iranian women's national football team has withdrawn her bid for asylum in Australia, according to Iranian state media. 5 of the 7 team members who originally requested asylum have now changed their mind. The women sought asylum after Iran labeled them traitors for remaining silent during the national anthem before their opening match at the Asian Cup.
A map? A crisis area?
Conflict was not in the interests of anyone in the world, and we see the damage being done, the potential economic damage that be done, and if I may say, he did the tax was a decision, and it's citizen, all the sequence. Yes.
Rally in central London. It's an annual event that began in Iran in 1979. It shows support for Palestinians, but many who attended had the Iran war forefront.
Well, it's important to raise our voice, tell everybody, raise awareness, show the Iran and this time that we are with them. Anywhere Israel policies are with genocide and creating problems, we're here to show them that we're with them, and hopefully we can bring a change.
Well, I'm here because I want to tell to the world that I oppose Trump's illegal war and I support Islamic Republic of Iran, the legitimate government of Iran.
We're protesting, and obviously it's just...
But have you lost that much by not being able to march?
Of course, because we're stuck in the plate to the right.
Let's bring in Jonathan Saei, research analyst with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He took part in protests against the Iranian regime in 2009. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here with us live. I want to ask you, you witnessed those protests in Tehran in 2009. You have contact with folks who are on the ground. What can you tell us about the state of the besieged paramilitary forces, how this regime is enforcing its law and oppressing its people at this stage in this war?
You are right to point out that the Basij and other paramilitary forces have been crucial instruments of brutalizing Iranians for the past half a century, and that has been one of the main achievements of this conflict, degrading the regime's repression capabilities, taking out these sites, enters facilities that detain and protesters. Some of sites that I looked at, I was actually of them. And seeing they're destroying it, of course, resonates greatly with the average Iranian who are seeing this as a war against the Islamic Republic and not a conflict against Iranian national interests. That is a very key distinction to be made. But that said, you're still talking about a repression apparatus that is still vibrant. It is still Iranians day to day, which is why it's very important for us as we enter the next phase of this conflict to ensure that the Iranians on the ground will have the capability to take to the streets. And I know that has been a key message from the president that said we are facilitating the conditions, but the final knockout comes down to the average Iranian.
Jonathan, there's a report in the Wall Street Journal that says that some in Iran are feeling betrayed by the United States right now. They feel like that they are worrying that they're going to be left with a devastated country, but the same regime in power. Do you agree with that?
Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I hope you will come again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.